Welcome back, everybody, to episode 11 of the Arch City Poker Podcast. My name is Tony, alongside Nick. Happy January. And Nick, how are we doing today?
Doing all right. Been better. If I'm sound stuffy, apologies, guys. I'm getting over a little virus sinus infection BS. But yeah, I'm excited for this topic. It's one that we talked about quite a bit before we got on air here. So I think it's one that you guys will be pretty interested in.
Absolutely. We have a really interesting topic. So, in a lot of cases, I mean, you've heard us, if you've listened to the podcast and the episodes before, you've heard of the pre-flop, the flop, the turn, the river. We talked a little bit about PLO. We talked about the mental game of poker and bluffing and these types of things. Today, we're going to be covering the topic of is YouTube poker real poker? And I think that's really important and interesting because everybody at all stakes has some level of interaction, or they watch or have listened to or know somebody who knows somebody involved in the YouTube poker scene, whether that's a poker vlogger, whether that's a specific room hosting live stream games, whether that's your local card room televising final tables and the tournaments that they host. All sorts of things are on YouTube for everybody to consume. And if you're brand new to Arch City Poker, go on and head on over to archcitypoker.com. We have lots of great No Limit Texas Hold'em content. We have lots of great Pot Limit Omaha content. And we cover a variety of topics that are designed to help you be a better player. Go ahead, like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube video. Check out our Discord if you want to go over hand history reviews and analysis. And Nick, to get us underway on the first topic, it's going to be on the topic of if I'm somebody who watches poker vloggers, people who record their sessions, they post their hand histories, they talk about anything in their poker world that's involving their game and their results, how they do a hand history breakdown. And if we're watching poker vloggers, if we're watching live stream games, are we watching good poker, right? So do I want to watch somebody on YouTube and then adopt their style into my game? Or is that maybe not the best idea? How do I know if I'm right or wrong?
Yeah, I mean, you can be watching good poker. I think some players that create content will play some hands well, but then they'll play some hands maybe not optimally. And I'm not even talking just GTO. I'm talking just based on common sense or just based on exploitatively speaking. I think the level of stakes matter. If you guys try to implement some hyper aggressive stuff and not even just hyper aggressive, but like some more aggressive or closer to balanced or GTO tendencies that I think would work against better players, better thinking players would work better in an environment where rake isn't as much of a beast. I think that with the low stakes games, the live low stakes games, which obviously if you guys are listening to us and you're a subscriber to this platform, you're a subscriber to archcitypoker.com. I mean, that's what we specialize in. We're going to teach you guys that rake is still the number one enemy. If rake is not as much of a thing, then we teach you guys how to loosen it up and obviously you know where to take it from there. Like, you're just be playing more hands and can get more aggressive, etc. But with the vloggers, with the kind of correlating with the live stream stuff, I think that yes, there can be good poker, like I said, but a lot of these guys, you have to keep in mind, are creating content for entertainment. At least that's a big part of what they're doing and how they not only get get viewers, but retain viewers. So there might be some higher variance plays that aren't as optimal, whether we are talking about GTO or we're talking about exploitative play. The best way I can put it is if you have a pretty good understanding of what should be happening, then you can easily decipher when somebody's probably doing something pretty poor. If I watch, when I go through some of the live stream stuff that I put on the site for our subscribers, when we go over hand analysis and I review live streams, and there's a few of those on YouTube here. I try to throw you guys a bone every now and then, but it's easy for me to decipher what's right and wrong right away because I just have so much experience with the game and like understand the fundamentals that I know what to look for right away. So like if you're more of a novice player or you just watch these streams, these vloggers for fun, then you might not know what you're looking at and you just see them playing really aggressively or doing some crazy things pre-flop or post-flop. And yeah, I mean it's tough to say whether it is real or it's good or bad without having a little more context, if that makes sense, Tony.
Yeah, I think anybody who's ever watched, I mean, I'm sure everybody who is in the poker community on YouTube has an idea of who some of the vloggers are, and they might be watching a video where such and such person opens a speculative hand from early position and it turns into this big double up that fooled the villain and they made this great play and it makes them look like they're a genius. And you're like, well, do I take that and do I now open 4-8 suited under the gun because my table is bad, is good, if people are aggressive or they're sticky, and I'm trying to take advantage of that? And my recommendation and Nick nailed it. It's entertainment value. The way poker sessions traditionally go may not be the most entertaining if you were to take it like verbatim. Like, I got dealt this hand in this position and I folded, I opened, I called, I limped, I did whatever. It'd be pretty boring. So if you had to imagine what would be exciting, what would be taking speculative hands and then running amok with it. And then sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. And they sometimes say that in the vlogs themselves. But if you're watching a poker vlogger and you're trying to think to yourself, well, I want to be better at cards and they're doing some things that I'm not really accustomed to doing. Is that the secret sauce? Is that the ticket to success? And, if you checked out archcitypoker.com, if you kind of looked at some of the fundamentals we have, you would very quickly identify correct and strategic play versus like trying to get lucky and play bingo and then like just turn what would we consider to be probably not very a profitable play into a profitable play. But yeah, Nick, I think you nailed it right on the head. And I think that actually leads us perfectly into our next question, which is like, what is realistic in a poker session? If you watch vlogs, you'll see, somebody having 3 sets, 4 full houses, 4 quads. And you're looking at the thumbnail and you're like, how in the heck does this person hit all these hands in one session? Because it looks like it's one session. It might be more, or maybe it's chopped up. But hitting that many strong hands back to back to back to back, or even within a 6, 7, 8 hour period is still impressive. And if we're to help articulate to somebody who's watched some of these vlogs and took what they saw in a thumbnail or somebody being on like a really hot streak is like motivation for them to get to a specific room or motivation to play, what would we say, or what can we kind of help do to maybe not deter them, but help keep their decisions on more of a realistic plane? So they're not going in there thinking that, oh, I'm going to get quads at least once every orbit.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't be results oriented. It's about the process. Did you make the right decision pre-flop? And I'm not talking about guys like Tony and I we're not the kind of players or instructors that are going to tell you guys to be so rigid. Obviously pre-flop, I've said this a million times on this platform that pre-flop is where you probably do need to be a little bit more rigid, but there's room for fluidity. There's room for you to adjust based on what your opponent is giving you, right? So I think Tony pointed out, like, when he was going through everything there the last couple minutes, that like if somebody raises 8-4 suited under the gun, that's probably just a bad play no matter what the game is. I don't care how bad the field is. It doesn't matter. But the situation matters. It matters what kind of information we have been presented with, and that's why position matters. If I get a player that raises in the cutoff and I know that he overfolds the 3-bets, then taking 8-4 suited and 3-betting him becomes a profitable play. And honestly, in my opinion, almost like a mandatory play. Now, it doesn't mean that we just take anything maybe, but if we start to see that this guy just he folds to us every single time, to be honest, I have a guy in our room, Tony, I would never say a name, but there's a player that I think has folded the last 98 out of 100 times to me that I've 3-bet him. And so
Hmm.
I 3-bet him with really good hands, like the nuttiest of hands, and then I 3-bet him with absolute garbage because I don't want to waste the value of the other hands because he's just going to fold. So like I would take 8-4 suited in that spot. But just because I have a bunch of weak players behind me, I'm not going to take a hand that's not playable enough out of position like 8-4 suited. So, I mean, I think the biggest thing is like what's realistic to get back a little bit on track here as far as like, I think not worrying so much about how many times you guys have not hit a pair or a hand, right? Like I hear all the time, like, I've had 11 pocket pairs today. I haven't hit a set yet. Okay, like guys, if you know the math, it's like 1 out of 9. You are going to hit it sooner rather than later because you haven't hit it for 11 times. And yeah, that sucks. But you might hit like 3 in the next 30 minutes, like you see on one of these vlogs. I wouldn't worry so much about what you're hitting, what you're not hitting. When you do hit and you get cooler, like those things will all work out. What matters the most is that it's the process. Did you guys make the right decision? And it doesn't mean you don't have to beat yourself up so much and think like, well, did I make the right decision? Did I make the perfect decision? Did you make a decision based on logic that you deem to be profitable? And after the fact, we can, and I don't mean we, like now, hopefully we, if you are Arch City Poker subscribers, but after the fact, I mean we in the sense like as poker players who want to get better, who take it seriously, we can review that spot after the session and we can go through it. We can go through a range. We can determine based on what we thought our opponent had. We basically just want to stay on level 1, range our opponent, and then make a decision based off of that info and his action, whether he checked or bet, what sizing to use if he bet. Basically, we can come up with a better line after the fact if we need to. But in that moment, try to just use logic, use the tools that we've given you, and you'll make likely a good decision, a plus EV decision. And that's what matters. I don't care how many times you flopped odds in a session. I don't care how many times you haven't hit your set. I don't care how many times you had ace king, you didn't hit your ace or king in a session, because that all evens out, because you're going to get sessions where you have ace king 5 straight times. I don't mean 5 straight hands, but like you'll get ace king 5 times in a session and you flop an ace or a king or better 5 times. Like it happens. And you never see people complain about that, Tony. They always just chalk that up to, oh, well, finally I'm getting what I deserve. And players act entitled. And we've talked about this before, guys. Like you don't want to be, you're never entitled to a pot. You're never entitled to hitting a hand a certain percentage of time. Like the math is the math. It is unbiased. It'll work itself out over time. You just need to get a large enough sample. The most important thing is you focus on the process, and you don't want to be results oriented, like I mentioned, but over the long term, that's where you can look at the results and determine, okay, am I winning as much as I should be? Do I need to review my game and like zoom out from the macro level? Is there something on the micro level, like something I'm missing somewhere where like I'm just not comfortable in a certain situation, whether it's pre-flop, whether it's post-flop? The most important thing is, again, the process. Don't worry about how often you have hit or not hit something. That's just math and short-term variance. That will work itself out over time.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it perfectly right on the head, which is it's not our job to flop quads, to flop a set, to get the fourth boat because I saw somebody get it. It is, are we making the best informed decision with the information that we have? And which is, if somebody who's got, let's pretend you're playing a 1-2 game and somebody's got 50 bigs and they open in the cutoff to $15 and you're on the button with pocket fives. That's not a profitable call. It doesn't matter how much you think you're due to flop a 5 with your pocket fives. If we're trying to set mine versus small stacks, even if we happen to flop our set, it is not guaranteed we're going to get all the money in, and it's certainly not guaranteed that it's going to happen often enough for that to be a profitable decision against a short stack. So when you see people on YouTube vlogs just getting all these monster hands, we just have to cut through all the BS and we have to say, what information do we have to make the best informed decision? We should probably be sticking to people who have at least 150 bigs in front of them. of whatever stake that we're playing if the idea of set mining is there. And then we have to take into account what action was before us, what action is likely to happen after us. Because if you have somebody like Nick or I who are in the blinds and we see the button cold call and open from late position, we're going to 3-bet pretty aggressively more often
we're coming
than not.
after you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't mean we're going to win, but that means that
I'm coming after you. I promise you guys, I'm coming after you. Yeah.
But that's what we're going to do. So it's like, yeah, you might feel like you're due to hit to flop your set, but what information are we utilizing to make that decision? And some vlogs are good about highlighting that and some aren't. Some are just like, under the gun opens to XYZ and we call with 7s in middle position. Flop is XX7. It's like, okay, that like good for you, but like, was that a good play? Like, yeah. Like, I don't know stack sizes. We don't know hand history. We don't know who's left to act after us. You just don't know. So
I would say, just to interject real quick, Tony, I think the biggest thing, like when you guys are watching the vloggers and like these first two questions, they're kind of subtopics of this overall topic, like, is YouTube poker real poker? You just need, like, this is kind of like halftime of this episode. Like, you need to just take it kind of with a grain of salt. Like, like I said, there can be good play in there. Tony and I, to be candid with you guys, like, we're not trying to call out anybody individually in a negative connotation, but like, I think pointing out some positive stuff, like, you guys know Brad Owen, like, he has a really popular channel. He does a great job with it. And Brad would be the first to admit that when he first started, he probably wasn't the strongest no limit hold'em player. Like, he was probably pretty good for his pool. He obviously was moving up, but over time he got a lot better. And I think that it was almost like twofold. Like, his content got better because he kept working on content creation, but it was also a bonus that his play also just naturally got better because he clearly worked really hard on his game. And so his play got better. It made the content better. The entertainment value of the content became better. So there are definitely, it's just one example that I wanted to point out, that like, there are vloggers all over the space that I think can make good plays. They have like a good foundation, but as Tony pointed out, you got to be careful to understand what you're watching. That like, maybe if you're one that just watches these just to blow off steam and you just enjoy them and you just like it for the entertainment value, then who gives a shit? Like, you don't have to worry about the strategic part of it as much. But if you're somebody that's trying to truly get better at any variant of poker, mainly no limit hold'em, of course, and you're watching these, we're kind of trying to like give you guys the like the suggestion that when you watch, just make sure you understand, like, if you can, pay attention to stack size. See, like, try to range the opponent in the hand with them. Like, try to see if you would do something different than the vlogger would do, and just use logic. And again, it's about the process. And I think that will help you guys out quite a bit if you are trying to watch these, not just for entertainment value, but for strategic value as well.
Yeah. You know what? That's a really good point. And instead of talking about perhaps just what poker vloggers get wrong, if you are trying to get better at the game and you have your favorite person you like to watch because you think maybe A, they're a good player, but B, they're also perhaps entertaining, there is some stuff to learn, right? So if they're using terminology like they understand what SPR is, they understand what position is, they understand that limping is bad. Maybe they're not cold calling a whole lot. They're 3-betting a little bit more than what you think an average player would. Those are traditional fundamentals that we also would encourage viewers of the Art City Poker podcast to make sure that they're introducing themselves to. Because if you're somebody who if you're playing in a 1-2 game and you find yourself calling $10 opens, $15 opens, $20 opens, and Nick or I were to ask you, well, when was the last time you 3-bet and what hand did you do it with? And all you say is aces or kings, there's probably a leak in your game that needs to be fixed or changed or adopted or just subject to change. And in some circumstances, sure, like maybe aces and kings was the only type of hand against that villain where you want to do that. But like, really have self-reflection in your own game. When I would watch and listen to poker vlogs, because I have my favorites too, I would imagine as they're describing the hand that they played and how I would play the hand. So not so much that what they're doing is correct, but if I were in their shoes, because maybe they're playing in a game that's bigger than the games that I play in, and I'm like, okay, I've never played 5100 before, so what would I do in this position with this hand that they say that they have? And maybe it's not. Maybe my idea of how to approach the hand is different than theirs. And maybe they lack some basic fundamentals, or maybe they did some really smart and creative plays. We're just trying to identify that poker vlogging is entertainment, and there is some great things to take from it. Because if you're not accustomed to what any of the terminology of poker, of Hold'em or PLO is, it's a great introduction to that kind of thing without feeling like it's like you're part of a class, right? Which could probably feel a little more mundane. But Nick, you actually did a really great segue into what the next one is going to be, which is like in a live stream game, right? Because we everybody has seen them, whether you've seen them at the Lodge, Rounders, the Bike, Hustler. They have these big live stream games that are anywhere from 510 to 2550, 100, 200, all these big poker pros, all these big personalities are a part of these games. And it is very easily to have like an imaginative question mark above your head to be like, is that how I'm supposed to be playing poker? Like, there's some pretty crazy things that happen in those games. And Nick, if we were to kind of lift up the curtain, so to speak, behind like how those games function, how they come to be, or maybe the player types that get invited, what are some of the things that maybe we can help highlight so an audience would like perhaps understand why the games can be as wacky as they are?
Sure. So like the more prominent ones, like Hustler, the ones that have the highest stakes action and the more prominent names, whether they are known professionals or whether they're just known recreational players that just enjoy the game and have the funds and the role to play that kind of or those kind of stakes. Those games are typically built around like you don't typically see like 8 really elite crushers in those games, right? Because yes, you could see like maybe some entertaining stuff, but it's not going to be as fun as putting 1 to 2, generally like maybe 2 professionals in a game, maybe just 1, like when Garrett used to be on there all the time, to be honest, and then they would build the game around him with candidly a bunch of whales, and like they would have a bunch of just fun loose players, whether they knew they were not very good or not. And it's like I said with those streams, guys, like it's similar to the vlogs, but it's different in a sense that like it's just people playing. There's no like commentating on how they play. It's just live stream. And you know, if you watch a game of just like a bunch of tight, aggressive guys or nitty guys playing, like that's like watching paint dry. Like you guys have played in those games before. Like nobody wants to watch those. I don't want to play in those games, let alone watch them. So yeah, I mean, like you have, but these streams are great because you get a lot of big hands, a lot more gambling. The players are playing their draws more aggressively. They're taking air and they're just attacking in spots where they just they think, whether they think it or not, they just want to run a bluff. Like maybe they think it's a good spot to run a bluff. But yeah, these games are typically built around specific types of lineups. They are the producers require you to definitely VPIP many more hands. They want you just to be involved. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to go crazy and play like the more whatever prominent whale that you guys want to think of, or if it's a prominent pro, like let's say Dwan's on one of the streams and like people know how Tom plays for the most part, especially when it's shorter handed. But like if it's ring, he's not as ridiculous pre-flop. But you know, like can we and should we play like these guys? Well, first of all, if we're talking about the crushers, like the professionals, no, not right now, because you don't have the skill set to do that. You kind of would be like playing above your skill level, and you're going to level yourself in spots, or you're going to put yourselves in too many marginal or tough spots to where you don't know why you got there. You don't know how to wiggle out of those spots if you need to. So you don't want to do that. And that the easiest way to do that is not play too many hands pre-flop, not play too many hands out of position. Should you implement any of the super aggressive or wild plays that the whales do? Probably not, but there is something that you can take away from these spots. Like, let's say you watch a hand and a player gets a really crazy bluff through. Understand and try to process why that happened. Don't think so much about like the hand they played pre-flop, like they took 8-3 offsuit and they decided to go crazy with it. Like, understand why they got their opponent to fold. It's likely because they were able to tell a story of where they represented a value hand. Like, typically speaking, if you're trying to represent a bluff, or you typically want to be able to represent a bluff when you have value. You want to be able to represent value when you're bluffing, especially in those games where even if they are worse off players, they're doing some thinking. Like, they're not just like on level 0 and just looking at their 2 cards and then like they just go off of that. Like, these guys, even if they're bad, like they're playing in stakes high enough that like they're going to be thinking a little bit about what you have. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But yeah, like, I mean, in a vacuum, should you play like any of the people in these streams? No, I mean, probably not. In a perfect world, you would love to play like Garrett in a no limit game, but like you're very likely not even close to that skill level. Now, if you improve upon your foundation, and that's where you guys start with us. You know, Tony and I are never going to sit here and guarantee financial results. We're never going to guarantee that we're going to make you guys as good as somebody like Garrett. But we are going to tell you that we're going to promise that we put in all the effort that we can, all the experience that we have into basically teaching you guys the foundation that we started with and how you can build from there. And we can get you guys to where you're crushing the live low stakes games. And as you move up into the mid stakes, and if you have aspirations of high stakes, yeah, these fundamentals you're going to carry those with you all the way through. And then you're going to be able to expand upon your game from there. But yeah, I mean, the live streams, they're great. Like, as far as entertainment value, there's a lot of fun stuff you'll see in there. The social aspect of it is really cool, but playing like these people is probably not the best thing to do. I will wrap up quickly by saying that if you guys are looking to play in a live stream game, there's, like, generally speaking, they're going to play definitely looser. And as I said, like, the producers are going to encourage you guys to play looser, try to play like more hands pre-flop, play more aggressively. One of the adjustments you would make, and I'll just give you a really easy practical example. Let's say you're in the cutoff, and so you have a button that is just 3-betting the hell out of you. I mean, like, almost every orbit just pounding you with 3-bets. There's 2 things you can do. One, you can naturally just tighten up and just come in and enter the pot with stronger range. And then when they 3-bet you, then they're kind of putting themselves in a bad spot because you just generally have a stronger range than what they're likely 3-betting you with. The problem is in the stream games, they're not going to go for that because they don't want somebody that's like playing like a nit. And so that can work in a non-stream game. Like, if you're sitting in a game, especially where they drop rake, and rake's a really big part of the game, then it probably pays to actually play on the tighter side, especially if they're maybe not bluffing you with 3-bets as much. But in the live stream games, if you guys are in that, you got to fight fire with fire. And so, like, you got to be able to 4-bet him back. You got to be able to get a little bit more speculative. Like, if you open 8s plus from under the gun, you probably need to add a few more of the pocket pairs. You got to add maybe a few suited connectors. Like, you don't have to do anything super outlandish to make sure that you're V-pipping enough, but just know that it's going to be a higher variance environment. You're either likely going to win much more than you usually win, or you're probably going to lose more than you usually would lose. But as long as you go in, assuming the risk at hand, if you accept the fact that there's going to be that variance, then there's nothing to worry about. Just go in and have fun and get involved. I encourage you to get involved. If you guys, again, come over to archcitypoker.com. We will teach you how to go into those games and, yeah, be able to fight fire with fire, essentially.
Yeah. Boy, you brought up a bajillion good topics. I would say, if we're to talk about how a live stream game works, I've played in a handful of live stream games, and I'll kind of highlight what my experience was, which is, more often than not, they're invite only, right? So they are curating the player list. It's not just 8 random people sitting down, and it just so happens that it's electric every time that they record a live stream. So when Nick was talking about V-pipping hands, he's talking about the producer or whoever's hosting the game wants people who give action and play lots of hands. The more hands you play, the higher VPIP you have. So as you play hands, your VPIP percentage goes up. In the games that I played in, your VPIP percentage had to be at least 40%. That means that you're full, you're playing just about every other hand that you're dealt. And if you're not, because you can watch streams where people are like a little more nitty, but they're just not invited back. And that
Yeah.
was the case with me because when I played in the live stream games that I played in, I noticed that the whole table was just maniacal and crazy, and everybody's opening and three betting and four betting. I'm like, wow, like that's pretty gnarly. We're going to tighten up our range and we're just going to start smashing people. And I did that, which is great, except I wasn't invited back because I'm just not giving good action to the players, and it's not entertaining to watch someone who's nitty. And I thought being nitty was the adjustment to be made when the whole table was hyper aggressive. So when you're watching those live stream games, just understand that, yeah, there might be some good players mixed in there, but for the most part, it's going to be players who are action heavy, people who drive entertainment, and then captivating poker. So like somebody who doesn't really have a large, deep interest in being good at poker and just wants to watch people throw large amounts of money at each other. That's kind of the audience that they're attracting. I would argue, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, I would say if you're watching a stream on the Bike or the Hustler, I would even argue that the 1020 at the Bellagio probably has a higher skill game than most of those 25, 50, 100, 200 games in some circumstances. Like that 1020 at the Bellagio, because there's usually like one or two tables that will get off. That's a tough game. If you want to like have iron sharpen iron, that's where you go to grind. In those 100, 200, those 50, 100 games, yeah, there's probably some great players. Like you mentioned, Garrett. Garrett's a fantastic player, but it's not 8 Garretts sitting down. That'd be ridiculous. So, yeah, I mean, just to touch on what you're saying, Nick, those live stream games, they're a little bit manipulated. So what you're seeing is a little bit more kind of like WWE, like it's more manufactured aggression than it is like natural aggression. Because people, if you want to be invited back, you have to play a bunch. So,
Yeah.
and then the last question and the last kind of topic that I kind of wanted to jump into, Nick, is you see people who've been vlogging for a while, or you've seen people in live streams that started playing 1-2, 1-3, 2-5, and now you see them playing stakes that are ridiculously higher in a short amount of time. And I think, yes, that can happen on some level for some players. But if I'm an aspiring player and I'm trying to get good and I think I'm good, and I see this person who was playing 1-2 5 months ago, and now they're playing, I'm going to make up they're playing 25-50, they're playing 50-100. Is that realistic? And if we were to talk to somebody about like how your skill develops over the course of time, where does the fantasy and reality kind of blend or merge?
Not realistic. Like you said, there always will be outliers. Players that moved up that quickly, they just ran white hot, and it doesn't mean they didn't play well. Also, that's obviously could be the case, but I would say, I mean, realistically, if you guys are trying to know if you're able to beat a level or a level of stakes, whatever, and you're trying to move up, I mean, you need a large enough sample size. And a lot of players will say that you need, like, back in the day, like a lot of guys would say like 10,000 live hands online. Like a lot of guys would say like it makes sense to get closer to like 50,000 hands. Some will say even 100,000 hands. So like you guys can understand, like do the math, like how many hands are you dealt like an hour in live poker? It's going to take a lot of time to probably know your true win rate just off of the financials. Now, can you play for 3 months and have like a really good barometer for where you're at relative to the competition? Sure. I would say though, just be careful about, I mean, we're starting to get into the topic of like almost like shot taking and like playing within your bankroll. I mean, the biggest thing, guys, is like it's not realistic within a year to probably go from like a 1-3 to like a 50-100. Can it be done? Like it could be, but that's not like really realistic. I would say again, the big thing: focus on the process. Get enough hands in where you're playing 1-3 or 2-5. If you're smashing those games and you get to a proper bankroll, and even before then, like it pays to take some shots to see where you're at. If you play in some 5-10, if you play above that, But yeah, the biggest thing is just getting enough sample size in, and then you guys, if you keep building upon your foundation, expanding upon your skill set, and focusing on the process, then you'll move up. The game is not getting easier to beat. It's going to be tougher than it was 5, especially 10, 15, 20 years ago. Like, it was much easier to move up incredibly fast if you were really good. But now, I mean, most live low stakes players are still, I mean, guys, candidly, like, horrific. I've said before, humans are just bad poker players. Like, even the really good players are generally bad compared to like what a solver would say to do. But that's typically because the humans are deviating and they're playing exploitively like they should. But yeah, just get enough of a sample size in. It's not going to be that quick. Can you move up a level or two pretty quick? Sure. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, if you see somebody that was playing 1-3 and then now they're playing, 5,100 of the Hustler on Poker Go or something, like, that's not really all that realistic.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And I think there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes, Nick. And I'm sure that anybody listening, if you have, like, I've had 1-3 sessions where, I've won, I don't know, a few grand, right? A really good session. It's not all the time, certainly not all the time. But if I've never done that before, I would have a question in my brain of like, well, I'm smashing my 1-3 games. Do I just move up to 2-5? And it's like, well, because that's where we're going to go into like a bankroll management topic. But generally speaking, no. No, you shouldn't. You should continue to dominate the games where you have the largest skill edge. And every once in a while, you can move up and play those stakes. But also remember, if you were watching somebody a year ago and they went from 1-2 to 100, 200, whatever the case is, we don't know, and you certainly don't know, what happened behind the scenes. Did they have a friend that had a lot of money that said, when you lose, I'll eat your losses, you just play? Because maybe they were being invited to a lot of live stream games or home games, or they were a very action heavy player and people wanted that individual or that player personality a part of those games. And maybe they couldn't financially afford it, but they ended up winning a few sessions. It could kind of hang out there for a little while. So we don't actually know how those people can move up stakes so quickly. But if you're to, like, figuratively have like a vision board for yourself of like, I am here, the goal is here. How do I get from A to B? And you're trying to identify what steps need to happen in order for that transition to take place. It's going to be solid foundation, fundamental poker that you're going to learn at archcitypoker.com. It's going to be revitalizing and restructuring your pre-flop strategy, your flop strategy, understanding 3-bets. We had, I think episode 9 was about bluffing that Nick was talking about earlier, about how all these people in live stream games are just making all these crazy bluffs with all these different lines. And it makes you think, like, am I supposed to bluff every time I have air? Right? In some circumstances, maybe. But you just want to have, if you're trying to take poker seriously and you're serious about your growth and your development and your skill, and you want to take the next step and you want to go from 1-3 to 100, 200 one day, it has to start with fundamental poker and understanding right from wrong first. If you're trying to just bank a couple big sessions and you're set over setting people left and right and you feel like you're just crushing your games, that's fantastic. But you also need to get ready, because nobody is a 100% winning poker player. You're going to have periods of downswings. You're going to have periods where it's impossible to flop a pair. And when you do flop a pair, you're always dominated by 2 pair. It's going to feel like the world, the poker gods are against you, so to speak. And there's nothing you can do. And it's where you have to come to a website like archcitypoker.com, dig into the material, refine your strategy, and trust the process. And I think that's where Nick he's got such a fantastic outline of, he's got the PLO Poker Bible, he's got the Nolma Texas Hold'em Poker Bible, where it's just like solid foundational strategies on how you can beat your live local games. And that's the first step that's going to help you get from 1-2 to 1-3 to 2-5. And all of a sudden you're going to be the most dominant player in your 2-5 games. You're going to be looking at these poker vloggers, you're like, I think I'm making better plays than these guys are. How are they playing 5,100? But Nick, those are just some things that I had. And I know that those live stream games can be full of good, strong players. Oftentimes, maybe not so much. if you were to give like parting wisdom to players who generally watch those vlogs or those live streams to enhance their own game, what are just some like parting final words you would have for those viewers?
I would say, I mean, anytime you guys are, we used to call it like ghosting a session where like you are essentially like, yeah, if you're watching somebody play, like put yourself in the situation, like pick somebody that's the hero in the hand. Um, just try to range the other opponents. Even if you can see like obviously their whole cards, like try to see what kind of story they're telling. Like, do you see where they are maybe checking too much in a spot or what sizings they're using? I mean, like we said, I would take with a grain of salt like a fair amount of the play just because like depending on the game. Like if you guys are watching a live stream 2-5, yes, it'll be more aggressive than maybe like a typical 2-5, but it'll be closer to what's realistic than say like the 50-100 at Hustler with like a bunch of like just gamblers, right? Like that game's not going to probably like provide you guys honestly all that much in terms of like skill value. Are there some things like I said that you can take from it that you can maybe like layer into your game where you can like maybe there's spots where you're being a little too passive. You can find some spots to be a little more aggressive or use what they used on some level, sure. But I'd be careful about trying to mimic or replicate anything on from the macro level, like big picture from those games and taking it into your live low stakes games because that's probably just going to get you into a world of trouble. But like, yeah, I think if you guys aren't, it would be smart if you're looking to actually get more skill value out of poker YouTube. If you're not just watching like pure strategic stuff, if you're watching a live stream, like try to find and root through the YouTube and try to find like the low to mid stakes games and try to watch those because when I pull those up and I cut through that footage and I record it for the site for the subscribers. There are mistakes made every hand. Like No Limit, it's not as egregious as PLO. Like PLO, it takes me a while to get through the hands because like there's so many horrific mistakes. But in No Limit, there's a lot of things like open limping, or this player's not 3-bet enough, or this player is a lot of the post flop stuff is where you guys would get a lot of value out of it and learning how to like, okay, is this person is what they're doing, does that make sense? Like, is there logic behind their action? It might not be the perfect action, but does it make sense? What would you do differently? So, yeah, Tony, I mean, I think the vlogs, the live streams, poker YouTube in general, there's a lot of great stuff on there. There's probably a lot of just fluff as well. I think being able to decipher which is which will help you guys. And it depends on what your goal is. Like, if you're just there, like I said, to watch for entertainment, you just want to see some gamble, some fun, then hell yeah, like the Hustler 50-100 or whatever they're playing, 100-200, the $1 million games. I mean, they're fun as hell. Like if I ever watch clips of those, or I rarely put on those streams, like in my mind, it comes up where it's like, oh, that was like a shit play, but I'm watching it just because I think it's just fun. It's just entertaining to watch. That's all I care about. But if I'm one of you guys and I'm looking for more, like I said, strategic stuff or, like I think the vloggers, you get more of that, like Brad, Andrew, and those guys. But yeah, so that's, I think pretty much all I have on it, Tom.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I would just say that if your goal is for entertainment, probably that's where you're going to get the most satisfaction from watching those. If you're trying to enhance your game and you're trying to adopt new strategies, you're trying to figure out what to do in certain spots, I wouldn't quite say that watching vlogs or live streams is the best way to enhance your game. I would just say, go back to foundational, fundamental poker. You can't go wrong. So for everybody who's a first-time listener, again, all this information we covered is on archcitypoker.com. Yeah. You can head on over to our Discord. You can post your hand histories. We can go over them. Nick and I will review your hand history and help highlight some corrections, or maybe you played a hand fantastically. Let's talk about it. Let's help you develop your game. If you're your first time watching this, like this video, share it, help get the word out. We're trying to make these podcast episodes every single week, and we're trying to create topics that apply to everybody at all stakes. So we're not just talking about what the 25-50 games are like, what the 5-10 games are like. We're trying to talk to you about what are live low stakes poker games like and how do you crush those games. But again, I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. That's going to wrap up episode 11 of the Arch City Poker Podcast. And thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful poker night. Thank you.